Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker shows, Dutch lace, horse peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. And yeah, let's go back to the USA and talk about the military, the United States military, and this whole idea that the military has suffered and is lacking, is hollowed out, and is weakened, and that Obama hates the military, and all this kind of rhetoric that's been thrown around, particularly over the Republican debates and all these charges of historic military cuts, historic defense cuts, and Romney blasts Obama over military cutbacks, and all these generals are on these shows talking about how ineffective and hollowed out the military has become. And I just, it's not so much I'm siding with the Obama administration as just looking at the facts and looking at the trends, just do not support that idea at all. Let's start off with some basic facts. We have the U.S. spends more than the top 10 militaries in the world combined. That's more than China, Saudi Arabia, Russia, UK, France, Japan, India, Germany, and South Korea combined. And those are all very formidable militaries. And as we know, particularly Saudi Arabia and Russia and China have been upping their expenditures on the military considerably, but they still come nowhere close. Another indicator of military growth and expansion is looking at the profits of the arms industry, which have grown exponentially. And every year, year after year after year, we have record profits in all the military industrial complex companies and all the arms manufacturers. We have these ongoing programs like the F-35 that will continue to weigh on the defense budget for years to come. They're now planning on, I think, buying something like 400 of these aircraft. So there's a huge expense baked in the cake that we've been paying for all along anywhere. So here's a huge expenditure for the military that's still in the research and development phase, eating up a vast part of the budget. And then, all this cost of the military overall, and discussions of how much money we spend on the military seems to want to overlook the supplemental budgets and the cost of the war and the appropriations for the wars made, these regular intervals where it's just put into a new bill or a new appropriation to give more billions to all these war efforts and all these nation building efforts all over the world. So it's inconvenient to include those in the figures. And then we also have the fact that between 2000 and 2008, during the Bush years, there was a 92% rise in spending. And so there's this huge rise in spending, and then you can use a lot of numbers to compare numbers that are more recent with these numbers from the past, and you have a 92% spending. Of course, it's going to make any drop look significant. But and also when you get into these arguments with these generals and these GOP debates, they never mention dollar amounts or historical context, other than more recent year-over-year comparisons. Military spending is in fact at historic highs, higher than Reagan's Cold War buildup, and higher than during the Vietnam era. And $110 billion of extra spending is already baked in the cake for the next 2 years, in addition to the total budgets that are appropriated. So, and then if you look at the actual numbers, in 2015, we spent $578 billion on the military. In 2014, it was roughly the same. True, not as high as record-breaking spending in 2010 and 2011 of $686 billion, but defense spending is still up 41% from 9/11 and 7% above the Cold War peak, and the Cold War peak of $538 billion in 1989. So once again, just playing with these formulas and playing with these statistics, it's easy to paint this picture that somehow the military is severely lacking right now, and there's these huge cutbacks. And none of this includes the interest on past military spending either, since all the money that's borrowed is we're paying interest on it, and so therefore a vast part of the amount spent on the military from interest is not included. And also it doesn't include a lot of VA benefits as well. The numbers would be even higher if you factored in veterans benefits, as well as expenditures that have been transferred over from the Department of Homeland Security. So in total spending in 8 years of Bush, from 2001 to 2008, $4.7 trillion was spent. In the 7 years of Obama, 2009 to 2015, $5.3 trillion was spent. And that's compared to Ronald Reagan, who in 1981 to 1988 spent $3.7 trillion. So we're upwards in the zone where we're spending, still spending more than the height of the Cold War. And the other thing is that this idea that the military is lacking ignores the fact that there's been a huge shift in strategy for the military, and a reliance on special operations forces, and a reduction in normal regular combat forces. And then, of course, a lot of tasks that used to be done by the military are privatized, and not only mercenaries, which are taking the part of a lot of ground soldiers in the United States, but also just private contractors who do all the administrative and grunt work, and they do the feeding in the field, and all manner of service to military itself. And that used to be a huge component of military in the field, was all the support troops. And then we have, like everywhere else, automation. A lot of things in the military are now automated, including firepower. There's so much firepower that's automated that smaller units can pack up a lot more firepower now, effectively and economically. And then another thing is that the military can stay the same, but the expense of the systems keeps increasing. So that's another thing that keeps the budgets up, is just the fact that the systems get more and more technological and more expensive. And that doesn't include research and development money and black budgets. That's another huge part that people need to remember, that you don't see those numbers thrown around in the media, but there's a huge component of black budgets and research and development budgets that are disguised, working through universities, working through DARPA, whatever. And like I say, this doesn't include things for appropriations for operations like training ISIS, training in Syria, and that sort of thing. So anyway, there's just a quick look at the fact that the military hasn't really shrunk that much. I know there was a report out last month that said that the U.S. was running out of bombs because we dropped 20,000 bombs on ISIS so far. But I'm sure that the military-industrial complex can more than keep up with that sort of pace. And so anyway, there we have it. I know. Oh, one more little tidbit that was in one of these articles that was so great. In the 1950s, Republicans slashed the military budget 23% during the Cold War under Eisenhower. And they accused the Democrats, quote, or actually the Democrats accused the Republicans of, quote, allowing their Neanderthal fiscal views to endanger national security, unquote. So isn't that funny that the roles have changed? It's the same rhetoric, the same accusations, the same events that we had back then as now, only the roles of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party were reversed, which proves once again they're pretty much two cheeks on one ass, and they both stink. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too?